Hi friends, welcome to Ekam IAS Prelims 2019 last lab. Thank you so much for the support and feedback you have given us so far. In the last video, that means in the part 5 video, I have discussed about electoral bonds, and one person has asked about the anonymity of electoral bonds. So I'll explain. The electoral bonds, they represent the latest attempt at removing black money from the electoral system. I have already mentioned that in the video. It is actually a financial instrument which looks much like a demand draft or a currency note, which will conceal the identity of the donor from the intended recipient. Here the intended recipient is the political party. So this conceals the identity of the donor from the intended recipient and from everyone except the issuing bank. And also the bonds can only be encashed into designated and registered bank accounts of those political parties that qualify for the scheme. So I have already mentioned in the video what are the eligibility criteria for the political parties. So in this view, both the political parties and donors will be required to comply with KYC norms. So KYC norms means know your customer norms. So in that case, I hope the doubt on anonymity is clear. And also, a report by the Association for Democratic Reforms or ADR states that funding to national and regional political parties from 2004-05 to 2014-15, it has largely remained opaque. And about 69% of the donations received by these parties were from unknown sources. And another ADR report reveals that almost 30% of the income of national parties in 2015-16, it was also from unknown sources. And these data suggest that black money is channeled into parties in return for political patronage. And hence, the introduction of electoral bonds is seen as a second step towards eliminating black money in India's electoral funding. So, you will be thinking, what is the first step? The first step was the reduction of limit for cash donation from rupees 20,000 to rupees 2,000. So, I hope that's clear. And regarding that of Ekam schools, I am extremely sorry for the mistake. It is meant for scheduled tribe students. I have mentioned both scheduled caste and scheduled tribe in the video. Please correct that. Ekam Model Residential School is a Government of India scheme of model residential school for scheduled tribes across India. And it was established by the tribal ministry. So that was the clarification I wanted to give. And thank you so much for commenting on this. Please continue the support and we'll bring out our best in making this really helpful for all of you. And now let's resume our last lab 2019. For that, the first topic for today is Island Development Agency. India, as you all know, has a large number of offshore identified islands, and they hold immense unexploited potential for fostering growth and even achieving development of the region in particular and also the nation as a whole. And considering this, the Island Development Agency was set up in June 2017 following the Prime Minister's review meeting for the holistic development of islands. And they can significantly contribute to the GDP. How? By leveraging the gains from promoting infrastructure and tourism on a large scale. And regarding the meetings of the agency are chaired by the Union Home Minister, and members of the Island Development Agency include the Cabinet Secretary, the Home Secretary, the Secretary of Environment, Forest and Climate Change, the Secretary of Tourism and the Secretary of Tribal Welfare. So, all these include the members of the Island Development Agency, and this Island Development Agency had identified 10 islands for development, which include 5 in Andaman and Nicobar Islands and 5 in Lakshadweep. Which are those islands? The islands of Andaman and Nicobar are Smith, Rose, Long, Avis and Little Andaman. So, you can see here the names of the islands. And in Lakshadweep, the identified 5 islands are Minikoi, Bengaram, Tinnakara, Chiriyam and Suheli. So, I just mentioned these names for your knowledge. Now, the next topic is Bureau of Indian Standards. So, the Bureau of Indian Standards, we are discussing it now because it came into news. The Bureau of Indian Standards granted first license to Gujarat Alkalis and Chemicals Limited for liquid chlorine on all India basis. So, that is the reason why it appeared in the news. So, the Bureau of Indian Standards, this organization was formerly the Indian Standards Institution or the ISI, which you all will be familiar. Then, the Bureau of Indian Standards is the National Standards Body of India, which works under the Ministry of Consumer Affairs, Food and Public Distribution, which was established by the Bureau of Indian Standards Act 1986. and the minister in charge of the ministry or this department which have administrative control of the BIS becomes the ex officio president of the Bureau of Indian Standards. And one of the major functions of the Bureau is the formulation, recognition and promotion of the Indian standards. And also the BIS is a founder member of the International Organization for Standardization or the ISO. And not just ISO, this BIS also represents India in the International Electro-Technical Commission or the IEC and the World Standard Service Network WSSN also. Now, the organization was formerly the Indian Standards Institution, as I already mentioned. So, there would be a confusion, right? I'll explain. The national standardization activity started in India in 1947 with the establishment of the Indian Standards Institution, and that was then established as a society. But in 1986, the national authorities made a review of the structure and status of ISA, and they assessed the impact made by it on the national economic development and technological growth, and it was felt that a new thrust had to be given to standardization and quality control activities. And therefore, the Government of India decided to create a statutory organization as the national standards body, and that was named as the Bureau of Indian Standards or the BIS, and it was given adequate autonomy as well as flexibility in its operations. It carries out activities of standardization, certification, marking and connected matters. And the Bureau of Indian Standards Act was passed by the Parliament in 1986 and BIS came into being on 1st April 1987. And regarding a very recent news, which means last week, the Bureau of Indian Standards announced the launch of an online consumer community and an online industry community for standard consultation, and these are done to enable any consumer across India to get connected with the BIS and also to participate in the consultation process on standards. So, I just mentioned this news, we will discuss it in later videos. That was a very recent news. Then, the next topic is research parks. Prime Minister Narendra Modi unveiled the Startup India, Stand Up India in January 2016. And this initiative had a slew of measures which were aimed at simplifying complaints, exempting profits from startups for the first 3 years, and rolling out action plan for boosting innovation and entrepreneurship in the country. So, all these were part of the Startup India, Stand Up India plan. The action plan also specified the setting up of 7 new research parks modeled on the research parks set up at IIT Madras. So, that is our topic, research parks. That's why I mentioned Startup India, Stand Up India. And the research parks would propel innovation through incubation and joint R&D efforts between academia and the industry. The proposed parks will be set up at IIT Guwahati, IIT Hyderabad, IIT Kanpur, Kharagpur, IISc, then IIT Gandhinagar and even IIT Delhi. And why are we setting up them? These research parks have been set up to enable development of high quality personnel and motivate professional growth for researchers in companies through part-time masters and PhD programs. Also, the government has taken measures to promote startups in the biotechnology sector. And in the biotechnology sector, we have the Biotech Equity Fund. So, I will explain that topic. I already said the government has taken measures to promote startups in the biotechnology sector. So, in that, new bioclusters, bio-incubators, technology transfer offices and bioconnect offices, they all will be set up in research institutes and universities across India. And there is also something called as the Biotech Equity Fund, and this fund will provide financial assistance to young biotech startups. And 3 bio-incubators have been selected as recipients of the above mentioned equity fund, and that is the reason why the topic appeared in news. So, we will also just go through what are the main objectives of setting up research parks. As you can see here, the main objectives are creating a collaborative environment between industry and academia through joint research projects and consulting assignments. Then, creating a self-sustaining and technologically fertile environment, encouraging and enabling R&D activities and startups that are aligned to potential needs of the industry, and also providing world-class infrastructure for R&D activities and incubation. And it is also aimed at enabling development of high quality personnel and motivating professional growth for researchers in companies through part-time masters and PhD programs. Now, the next topic is National Safety Council. National Safety Council appeared in news because National Safety Council's NSCI Safety Awards was distributed for the year 2017. National Safety Council is an autonomous body to generate, develop and sustain a voluntary movement on safety, health and environment at the national level. And it was set up on March 1966 by the Ministry of Labour and Employment of the Government of India. What are the functions of National Safety Council? First is conducting specialized training courses, conferences, seminars and workshops all over the nation. Then conducting consultancy studies such as safety audits, hazard evaluation, emergency management planning and risk assessment. You can see here the functions. Then third is facilitating organizations in celebrating various campaigns, for example, Road Safety Week, Safety Day, etc. So in facilitating such campaigns. So these are the main functions of National Safety Council. The National Safety Council Safety Awards, they are much coveted national level awards in the field of occupational safety, health and environment, and they are given in recognition for effective safety management system and excellent safety and health performance by the organization in three sectors, and these three sectors are manufacturing, construction and MSME sectors. Next, we have a very important topic, SR Bommai case. SR Bommai versus Union of India case, it was frequently mentioned in the news following the fractured mandate in Karnataka Legislative Assembly. And it was a landmark judgment of the Supreme Court of India where the court discussed at length the provisions of Article 356 of the Constitution of India and related issues. The judgment was an attempt to curb the misuse of Article 356 of the Constitution of India, and regarding the article, it allowed the President's rule to be imposed over state governments. And under Article 356 of the Constitution of India, if a state government is unable to function according to constitutional provisions, the central government can take direct control of the state machinery, and this is termed as the President's rule. And as a result, the executive authority will be exercised through the centrally appointed governor, and the governor has the authority to appoint other administrators to assist them. Now, regarding the case, the verdict concluded that the power of the President to dismiss a state government is not absolute. The verdict said that the President should exercise the power only after his proclamation is approved by both houses of Parliament. Until then, the President can only suspend the Legislative Assembly, and how this is done? By suspending the provisions of Constitution relating to the Legislative Assembly. Now, what happens if the presidential proclamation is not approved by the Parliament? In case both houses of Parliament disapprove or do not approve the proclamation lapses at the end of a 2-month period, and in such a case, the government which was dismissed, it revives. The Legislative Assembly which was kept in suspended animations, it gets reactivated. Okay. And also, the court made it clear that a presidential proclamation under Article 356 is subject to judicial review, and that is a main point to be remembered. The court made it clear that a presidential proclamation under Article 356 is subject to judicial review. The significance of SR Bommai versus Union of India case is that it put an end to the arbitrary dismissal of state governments by the central government. Now, let's have a look at a previous question related to this topic. It was asked in 2018. You can see the question here. If the President of India exercises his power as provided under Article 356 of the Constitution in respect of a particular state, then option A, the Assembly of the state is automatically dissolved. Option B, the powers of the legislature of that state shall be exercisable by or under the authority of the Parliament. Then option C, Article 19 is suspended in that state. And option D, the President can make laws relating to that state. So, we can consider the options one by one. Option A is the Assembly of the state is automatically dissolved. The President may dissolve the state legislative assembly or put it under suspension but here it says the assembly is automatically dissolved. So you can say that it is a wrong statement. Now option B. Option B says the powers of the legislature of that state shall be exercisable by or under the authority of the parliament. That seems to be a logically true statement, because the president may authorize the parliament to make laws on behalf of the state legislature. Now coming to option C. Option C says Article 19 is suspended in that state. So what is Article 19? Article 19 of the Constitution guarantees to all its citizens the right to freedom of speech and expression. So the freedom of speech and expression is a fundamental right, and Article 356 or the President's rule has no effect on fundamental rights of the citizens, unlike the national emergency situation. So that statement is also a wrong statement. Then option D says the President can make laws relating to that state. This statement also seems logically incorrect, because under the Constitution the power to make laws rests with the legislature. But in cases when Parliament is not in session and immediate action is needed, the President can issue an ordinance. So the best answer would be option B. The powers of the legislature of that state shall be exercisable by or under the authority of the Parliament. I hope it's clear. Now, there is one more question from the same topic which was asked in 2017. You can see the question here. Which of the following are not necessarily the consequences of the proclamation of President's rule in a state? 1. Dissolution of the state legislative assembly. 2. Removal of the council of ministers in the state. 3. Dissolution of the local bodies. And you have to select the correct answer from the given below quotes. So, when the President's rule is imposed under Article 356, the relationship between the centre and the state alone undergoes change, and the Council of Ministers of State is necessarily dismissed, and President assumes to himself all the executive functions and powers of the governor. The state legislative assembly is suspended or dismissed, and therefore the state legislature is dysfunctional. The legislative power of the state legislature is exercised by the Parliament or by the President, as the case may be, and there is no effect on the financial relations and the fundamental rights. So the answer would be option B, that means 1 and 3 only. Now the next topic is permanent residency status. It is actually a scheme, permanent residency status scheme, and it came into news because 2 years after it was launched by the union government, the permanent residency status scheme is yet to find a single applicant. And this scheme was launched to provide a host of facilities for foreigners who invest at least rupees 10 crores under the foreign direct investment route. And also the scheme is expected to encourage foreign investment in India and thereby facilitate the Make in India program. So under this scheme, suitable provisions will be incorporated in the visa manual to provide for the grant of PRS means permanent residency status to foreign investors. This PRS will be granted for a period of 10 years with multiple number of entries. That means they can go back and come any number of times. And this status can be reviewed for another 10 years if the PRS holder has not come to adverse notice. And the Union Cabinet has cleared the PRS in 2016 to boost its Make in India policy. Also, the scheme will be applicable only to foreign investors fulfilling the prescribed eligibility conditions. There are 3 such required conditions. So, what are those 3 conditions? In order to avail the scheme, the foreign investor will have to invest a minimum of rupees 10 crores, and that should be done within 18 months, or rupees 25 crores, which should be done within 36 months. And in addition to that, the foreign investment should result in generating employment to at least 20 resident Indians, and that too every financial year. Okay, and the PRS holders will be allowed to purchase one residential property for dwelling purpose. And the spouse or whoever dependents are there, and the dependents of the PRS holder, they will be allowed to take up employment in private sector, and they can even undertake studies in India. So that's all regarding the topic. Next we have Bharosa. Bharosa is a one-stop crisis center that was set up by Hyderabad police which ensures support to women and children, those women and children who are victims of violence. The program was initiated in 2016 and Bharosa provides under one roof the services related to police, medical, legal, then psychological counseling and even rehabilitation services, and all these are done in completely private counseling rooms in order to maintain confidentiality and privacy. And the center is equipped with well-trained staff and modern gadgets, which includes facilities like video conferencing, so that they do not need to go to the court. And this came up in news because UNDP, or the United Nations Development Program, has proposed to set up a skill development center exclusively for clients of Bharosa. And this initiative is aimed at empowering vulnerable and marginalized women by imparting skills training. This center will be set up in line with agreement signed between Hyderabad Police and UNDP under the Disha project to build capacities and skills of women, and I will explain the Disha project later. UNDP, as I already said, is United Nations Development Program. It is the global development network of United Nations and it provides expert advice, training and grant support to developing countries, but emphasis is given on assistance to least developed countries. So, I have mentioned this Disha project. This Disha is actually a partnership between the Inter-Development Foundation and UNDP that aims to support 1 million underprivileged women in India to learn marketable skills and connect with income opportunities. So, the Disha project helps women become economically self-sufficient through training, employment and skill development. So, that's all regarding the topic. Thank you so much for listening.